We'll call to order the regular meeting for the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners for Wednesday, December 11th, 2013. Good morning, everyone. My name is Langdon Neal. I'm chairman of the board. Seated to my left is Commissioner Marisol Hernandez. Commissioner Richard Cowan is ill today, so he won't be with us today. First item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda itself. Any additions, deletions? If not, we'll move to item 3, approval of the minutes for Tuesday, November 26, 2013. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order. Executive Director's Report, Mr. Goff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just to let the board members know that, we're seeking, we have a position open for purchasing director, and it's been put in career builders, and it's also been listed on the board's website. We have about 79.
More than 60.
Yeah, 79 resumes. Yeah, but we have more than 70 resumes that we're reviewing now.
Okay.
Hopefully in the next week we should be able to come up with somebody for this position. So I want to let the board members know it has been posted and people have applied.
Okay.
Basically what we're doing is just trying to get ready for this upcoming election. Our finances for this year were almost completed since we were never funded for the special congressional election.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on empty right now.
Yep.
But hopefully we'll make it through because we need to get ready for these the electoral board hearings that are coming up.
Yep.
So basically that's all I have to state.
I've been out of the office, so I attended the AECOI conference in Bloomington last week, and that went very well. Mr. Scanlon was a presenter on electoral boards, and it went very well. I just got back from Quebec City, Canada yesterday, where I presented at the Colville conference and did a presentation on gearing up for Election Day is your Super Bowl, gearing up for your election. So. But everything here is fine. I know I was in Saturday. The registration department was working hard. They had individuals in checking petitions, so everyone's moving.
Great. Do either one of you talk about how we've done on checking petitions and what we expect going forward?
Mr. Scanlon will review that. But,
okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. I don't know if you want to do that
We'll go out
now.
of order.
All right. So Monday was the deadline for filing objections to nomination papers for candidates who filed for the March 2014 primary election.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 40 objections that were filed with the State Board of Elections, for which the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners will have jurisdiction. These are congressional districts, legislative districts, and state representative districts that are entirely within Cook County and partially or wholly within the city of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a list of the 40 objections there. This list is also posted up on the board's website. Jim Allen saw to that yesterday. We have set notice for the first meeting of the electoral board, which will be on Monday, December 16th at 9 o'clock. We also have arranged for 10 hearing officers to begin hearings on these cases at 10 a.m. following the meeting of the electoral board. And so we will be going forward from there.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Scanlon, questions from Mr. Scanlon? All right. Mr. Goff and Ms. Bateman, that concludes your report. All right, we will move to
Mr. Allen.
Mr. Allen.
Chairman Allen, Commissioner Hernandez, thank the chairman for the presentation last week in front of approximately 60 teachers from Chicago high schools all across the city. And the event was sponsored by the McCormick Foundation, our gracious host, and they're very excited about the suffrage at 17, allowing 17-year-olds to register and vote in the primary. We had a very strong response, positive response from the teachers. I think it helped that the chairman referenced that his mother and grandmother were both teachers in the Chicago Public High School. And the event was just, it was really well attended, well received, and they're geared up to start on January 1. That's the big challenge that we have. We've also had contact since the last meeting with the warehouse for Chicago Public Schools. They're going to be instrumental in reaching the vast majority of the schools that we need to reach. The Archdiocese, we're going to reach their schools, and private schools, other private schools, by mail. I tendered to the commissioners a report on turnout from recent elections around the country, and we, as much as we beat ourselves up on whether or not we have high enough turnout, the results from these highly contested elections from various states indicate that we're still doing fairly well compared to the rest of the country. We're continuing to work on the website redesign. We have a meeting today with the vendor on that. We have an Asian Indian community meeting coming up to solidify which precincts are going to be covered by language assistance next year. We've also gone through the census data recently to try to determine better which Spanish-speaking and Chinese language assistance, where we're going to have more assistance in those precincts. Lastly, the final notice for the canvas mailing to scrub the voter rolls has gone out, so we're done with that. That's it.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, we did have a meeting with Equip for Equality last week, and I introduced Audra Wicki to their president and their general counsel, let her know that she's overseeing community services. So hopefully we'll have a meeting with them because they want to help out on this upcoming election. So I just
Right.
want you to be aware of that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'll just say the event last week on suffrage at 17, I should say that Audra and Laura supported me there, so it's always nice to have staff there boosting me up. But it was a nice event and really kind of an interesting dynamic between, if you will, a public-private partnership, establishing really the commitment from the not-for-profit community working with us in partnership to assist in registering 17-year-olds along with the public schools. So served a nice little model of maybe things we can expand on further if we get the foundation and the not-for-profit and civic community involved in funding some of what we do from a public standpoint. I think it's a nice model maybe going forward in the future. So I did enjoy the event. Thank you, Jim, for organizing that. Okay, we will move on to old business. At this time, do we want to talk about our infrastructure initiative and voting equipment?
We're still moving forward, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Then we'll move on to legislation. Mr. Scanlon, anything we need to talk about there?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And all right, so we will move to the new business, which we have a demonstration today from ES&S on proposed poll book system. Judd, good to see you.
I think I know most of you, but Judd Ryan with ES&S. Also with me today is Mark Radke and Jesse Blackman.
Welcome.
Thank you. Just like to give you a little brief history on our product offering for Board of Elections. The Express Poll 5000 is the most widely used poll book in the country. We have over 18,000 of them installed currently. We have some major installations. We have the entire state of Georgia and the entire state of Maryland. And we have some very large cities. Within those two states, obviously the city of Atlanta, the city of Baltimore. But outside of that, we've also implemented in Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, and we have a whole host of installs in Ohio, including Montgomery County, which is Dayton, is probably one of our largest there. So it's a proven product. It's worked very well. I think what you'll find with a product like this is it helps both of us better serve voters in the city of Chicago through faster processing. We've proven in those install bases that I mentioned that you can process voters up to 50% faster than you do today. You also have the ability to redirect voters. What I mean by that is, with redistricting and a lot of things that you go through, it becomes confusing a lot of times. And I know the board makes every effort through mailings and other things to get people to the proper locations, but sometimes they go to their own polling location. What this product has the ability to do is redirect those voters. If they're not in the correct precinct, rather than having to make a phone call downtown, you can expand the search to a citywide search, call up their correct location, and even print them directions to that location, which better serves that voter, gets them on their way, gets them to the correct location so they're not casting a provisional ballot and running the risk of some of the offices lower on the ballot not being counted. It also cuts down on phone calls to this office, freeing your people up to better handle other problems. So we've been very pleased with that. So with that, Mr. Radke will walk us through processing a voter. We'll see just how simple that is and how efficient that is.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I would like to make a note in the video that we're going to pause while Ms. Chin moves the video camera over.
Okay. A million voters, and they're using the system?
Yes.
Okay.
And the state of Maryland actually runs it as a statewide install, and that's
It's about 3.5 million, and the nice thing about both of those statewide implementations is that every express poll throughout both of those states have the precinct information, the jurisdiction information, but also the statewide database on every unit as well.
That's
So,
interesting.
And how long has it been used in each of those states? And for how many elections or how many years?
we're talking, actually in Georgia, the predecessor to this was actually first installed, the Express Poll 4000. That goes back probably, I'm going to say 8 years ago or so. Yeah, so it's been some time. Yep. With this too, again, that capability, it just allows you, like as an example in Georgia, if I walk into, say, Gwinnett County in Atlanta, part of Atlanta, and I'm supposed to vote in Valdosta, Georgia, they can tell me exactly the address of that location in Valdosta where I should vote. So dramatically reduce the number of provisional ballots for them. All right. As Judd mentioned, obviously today you're using an application for ballot. When a voter walks in, they flip through the paper to find that voter's name. They verify the address, date of birth, they sign on that paper and so on. Basically, we're replacing that with this, automating that entire process. And again, the nice thing about this is, with the application for ballot today, you can look up voters in that specific precinct location. But with this, you've got the precinct database, but you also have the entire city of Chicago database on every one of these units as well. So if I walk in, I don't belong in that precinct, they can direct me to that other location right there on the spot. It keeps the lines moving faster, and will also reduce your provisional ballots. Shelby County, Tennessee is an example. The very first time they used this system, they've got about 600,000 registered voters in Shelby County. They actually had an 80% reduction in their help desk call rate the first time they used the system, because they were able to redirect voters that quickly. Let me just look up a voter very quickly. Let's say Barbara Adkins comes in to vote. I simply start typing in a few letters of her name, and as I type in letters, it starts posting names on the screen that relate to the letters that I've entered into the system. So I don't have to hit a search button or anything else. I just type in a few letters. There's Barbara. I touch on her name. It brings up her address, her date of birth, just like you have today with your application for ballot. We're just really presenting it a little differently. What we also have on the screen too is an instruction box right here. This allows you to put in your instructions, your procedures, your terms that poll workers are used to, because again, you're taking them from a paper application for ballot to this. So they're going to see some of the same phrases and all that has been used for their training already. It's going to make this transition that much simpler. In this case, I'm going to issue a standard ballot. We compare their written signature against their signature from the voter registration system. If it matches, we're going to enter that signature. And we have the option here of a paper ballot or an E2P ballot. In this case, we're going to issue a paper ballot. Gives you the ballot style for that voter. We issue the paper ballot. Validation process is completed. With this, you're talking about validating a voter 50 to 65% faster. And that's not our terms. The state of Maryland has actually taken a stopwatch to this and they verified that. 50 to 65% faster. Your lines are going to move faster. The nice thing about this too, your poll worker accuracy is going to go up because they have to complete certain steps in order to validate this voter as they go through the system. If we're offering a paper ballot as well, this will actually print out information for that particular voter. It could be just the ballot style, it could be the voter's name, their party, and so on. You determine what shows up on this piece of paper. Let's say we have a voter that walks in though and they don't belong in that precinct location. Let's say Brian Brush as an example. B-R-U-S-H. It comes up on the screen, says Brian doesn't belong in this location. Now today, you'd pick up the phone, if you're a judge of elections, call your help desk, say Mark's out here, he doesn't know where to go vote, or Brian's out here. In this case here, what we do is we can search the entire city database now. And sure enough, Brian belongs in the city, he just doesn't belong in that precinct location. Now what we can do is touch on his name. It clearly states here that he doesn't belong in this location. We can't offer him a standard ballot. But instead of calling Election Central, we just simply touch on precinct details. They can bring up a map of the location, the address of where he's supposed to vote. We hand him the information, he's on his way. So within 10-15 seconds, if he's in the wrong location, we can redirect him. And it works out very, very effectively. As I mentioned, we see a 70 to 80% reduction in help desk calls because of this capability. Another very important part of this system is the online capability. I'm going to pass that along to Jesse to demonstrate for you.
So what we have here is we have a product that will communicate with the Express Poll 5000s on election day, which will give a more global vision for what is happening in the city for your staff. What I mean by that is, well, the first thing that we're on here is what we call the dashboard. This shows your turnout, but it also provides other statistics as far as turnout by hour, turnout by age group. Probably the most valuable thing on election day is turnout as a whole. Obviously, the media is going to be inquiring and so forth. This allows Mr. Allen to give the media real-time updates as to how things are progressing, and not so much relying on exit polls and things of that nature. They'll have real-time data as far as turnout. The other thing that this product offers, in the morning, it gives your staff a vision into what's going on at the poll sites and the precincts. These little pin pushes here are your data. That's where your poll sites are throughout the city. Obviously, they're all red because we only have a couple of poll books online, but what you'll want to see is all green here. And it gives you a quick visual with the red and green as to which poll sites are open and which poll sites are not yet open. And you can set up through this product, you can set up alerts. And it can be customized by your staff. So if they want to set an alert at 5:45 to show us the poll sites that are not yet open or online, we'll get those. You can also set up automatic emails or text messages to be sent to your rovers and direct them quickly to troubleshooting the issues that you may be having in the poll sites. So you get a real quick snapshot, and these are some of the alerts that Jesse's showing here. But as you go through the day, you can also monitor turnout and set other alerts. Let me know when turnout gets to 75%. That allows you to look at, okay, what number of ballots did I supply to this location? So, yeah, am I at this threshold need to think about maybe deploying more ballots, things of that nature. So there's a lot of ability to customize in here, depending on what the staff wants to see and how they want to plan and react to any issues that may come up. But this gives you nice visual. You can set up users. You can view this from your desk as well, and monitor exactly what's going on in the city throughout the day. So it's a nice tool, and it gives you a nice vision into the product.
Excellent, excellent. Commissioner Hernandez, any questions?
Well, going back to the signature, you know, you're talking about if it matches, you know, we'll go ahead. What happens if there's an issue with the signature not matching, and does it fall to, you know, provisional? You know,
You handle that in the same way that you do today. If, for example, if you have an application, you print your application, your signature's on the application for ballot. Yeah, if it doesn't match or you have the wrong signature, there's a procedure in place to call the board and decipher whether or not that voter is actually registered, and you would handle that in the same fashion.
And then is there somewhere where you can input that person has been given a provisional ballot, or, yeah?
Yes, actually, the product allows you to, there's a drop-down menu that allows you to track the reason that voter voted provisionally. And then that data will be available to your staff in addition to the voter history. All that information is preserved on the unit itself. And so that you can more readily investigate those provisions after the fact.
If I may too, I just wanted to mention that the instructions that you had mentioned earlier about, you know, what happens if this does not match, that can be presented right on the screen for the person that's actually taking that process.
And my other question is in terms of the turnout, how long does it take these to load the information, you know, on?
What is the
link?
process for setting it up in the morning by the judges?
Yeah, that's really, it's a matter of setting it on the table, plugging it in, and hitting just the toggle switch on top that turns the unit on. You just toggle it to the on position. It's one of the beauties of this is because it is a purpose-made device, it boots up right into the application.
Okay.
Poll workers will not have to know how to navigate Windows or any other operating system that boots up right into the application. So turn it on and then launch Express Poll.
But before Election Day, I mean, we have early voting that runs until the Saturday before, and then everything has to be downloaded, uploaded or downloaded. And how does that process occur?
Well, if I can, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna, like we pre-lat every piece of equipment.
Right.
We're gonna pre-lat these units. We're gonna preload them with their data. And then on election day, or when the judge is going and set it up, it will download what other information has not been previously loaded into it. So we'll update every unit will be updated.
So do you have to update every individual? Or is it-
We're gonna program these by precinct, so everyone will be precinct specific.
So that process has to take place during pre-lat?
Yeah, and it's just like we do when we pre-lat the voting equipment.
Yeah.
We'll pre-lat that unit at the same time.
Okay.
So everything will be wrapped up as a package when it's put inside the supply carrier.
So how does the timing work on that between the close of registration and pre-lat? I mean, the pre-lat, then we have close of registration.
Right. Well,
And then we have-
close of registration, well, the unit will, all that will be loaded in prior to the close of registration.
Right.
And then when they turn the units up, they will automatically then refresh and download any information that isn't already in there.
So is that wirelessly?
Yes.
That's wireless?
And that's
Wireless,
why
you
we
can do
have
that?
our folks from
Okay.
Verizon here with us. They're gonna be the provider of the wireless internet or
Oh,
capabilities.
all right, great.
And
Mr.
we've
Goff
used-
is correct. At some point, whether it's 21 days prior to the election or 14 days prior to the election, we will download a cut of the city's data, voter registration, to each and every express poll. Then the warehouse staff will test it, lock it down, and then load it into the election supply carriers. Then on election day, when the poll workers boot up the system, any transactions, whether it's new voter additions or somebody voted early or absentee, those updates will be downloaded and reflected on the poll book. So if Mr. Allen voted early and then he went to the poll site, under his name it'll say voted early on such and such date, and will not allow him to then vote at that location.
It'd be interesting if I could ever get to a poll site on election day, so.
How many split precincts?
We'll probably have about 285 split precincts. And what's good with this, it handles the split precinct. That whole unit will know what ballot style each voter gets. And it'll be written on that piece of paper, so the voter will know which ballot style that he needs to get. And the judge knows which ballot style they need to hand that voter.
And one last question, how many units are for each? 1 unit?
We're gonna put 1 unit per precinct. Some of the larger precincts we may go with 2. But for this upcoming election, we're putting 1 in every precinct.
Okay.
Only one, huh?
Only
Well,
one.
we're gonna run a redundant system, I
Yes,
assume.
we are.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay,
have the
so,
applications for
okay.
ballot out there at the same
All right.
time.
Because
Well,
normally-
nothing's gonna stop, so I'm
Right,
just saying,
yeah.
it'll be operational.
So then we'll build on the system from there,
Yes, we will.
because I would think we'd ultimately want more than 1 unit.
But if we're.
Most of the locations around the country that use this equipment generally only have 1. But we'll look at that.
But if we have a redundant system, is that going to be an issue where we have paper? And will some voters be going to,
No, we're gonna have the judges all
Everybody.
go to
Right.
this equipment. right?
everybody will
Yes,
go?
yes.
It'll just be in the,
Just
carrier
in
case.
case. As a backup.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
We're thinking about the wording, break only in emergency, you know, and
Another amendment to the instructions, judge's instructions.
so we.
How many pages are we
We
now,
think
Kelly?
once the judges become familiar with an electronic poll book and used to it,
Yeah.
they're gonna prefer this
Yeah.
to trying to scramble between the hours of 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. to put a bunch of stickers on individual ballot apps to indicate who has voted early or who is absentee voted. And if you think about it, that same process of cutting the file to create those paper ballot applications has to occur even earlier than this one does. So you have to start that 30 days before the election. You haven't even processed your final registrations, and you have to deal more with supplemental poll lists, in addition to all the voter registration information about, or voter history information about who has participated in earlier absentee voting.
So, one last question. So, when you pre-lat and download all the registration information, the whole city will go on each piece of equipment.
Yes.
And then, how is the equipment then programmed for the individual precinct that it's assigned to?
Right now, the warehouse, and I'm jumping on your turf, let me know.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
But right now, the warehouse already goes through that process for programming each scanner and each touchscreen to that particular precinct with those particular ballot styles for those state reps, state senators, county board, what have you, districts that fall into that precinct. So they're already accustomed to programming equipment, and this would be a fourth piece of equipment: the hat, the touchscreen, the scanner, and now an electronic poll book.
And I take it then the capability of this is compatible with
the same other process for downloading this information. On the other 3 pieces of equipment, is this unit can read and is capable of reading the information the same way.
What it is what we're doing is we're making it precinct specific, so every precinct will have a completed set. What we'll do in this unit, we're only going to have the signatures for that precinct in that unit.
Right, you wouldn't need any.
I wouldn't need any
No.
other ones. So downloading the rest of the city will make it easier. The biggest part is downloading the signatures.
Right.
So we're already going to download those signatures into every one of the precincts. We have 32, we have 2 racks and 16 units each that will burn the memory cards that will be placed inside those units.
That's what I was going to ask. So it's a memory card?
Yes, it is that we're going to program with this. Now, there's a lot of security to the system. We'll talk about it later on, but we'll make sure that, after a certain hour, the unit's off, it's dead. If somebody grabs a unit, they can't use it. It won't be no good. And it's not like a laptop or something. You just can't use it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Team Approach. Sharon, we'll give you a chance to talk a little bit later. Just keep your notes.
I think we still have and that's still more of the presentation, right?
No, I think she's summed
No,
up.
that's
Okay.
really the highlights. If you have more questions, or if you'd like to come up and look at it closer after the meeting, we'd be happy to stick around for that as well.
So maybe, Mr. Goff, you could give an overview of the internal review process that you led here in terms of the staff reviewing the system.
Well, we're still working on reviewing that, but we did have, and Mr. Allen kept notes on all that.
So there was a robust review internally of the system?
intense.
Okay.
The star change.
I mean, I know this, I'm just kind of, I think for the record, you might want to talk about that then.
We received 8 proposals, and they were all from what we would consider viable firms with a history of providing electronic poll book services as an electronic poll book solution to other jurisdictions around the country. Some had more experience than others. Some had they each had different features. They each brought different assets to the table. So the chief concern from Mr. Goff's and Ms. Bateman's concern was ease of use for our poll workers and best possible service for our voters. And so we ended up narrowing, after going through all of the proposals very carefully and making all kinds of notes. We met again. Mr. Goff designated a very large management team, and we met to review what we saw as the pros and cons of each proposal. From there, we narrowed our focus down to 2 vendors, and then we zeroed in on the details of those 2 proposals. And in the final analysis, we'll report to you later, there was one vendor that came out when we boiled it down and looked at all the critical issues, stronger than the other. So.
And Mr. Chairman, all 3 board members have copies of the proposals that we received.
Yes, we do.
I know I spoke to all of you, and you've reviewed the copies that we have, so just let you know.
Can I go back 1 minute? And we touched upon, you said that there's a card that you insert in this slot little computer. And so at the end of the day, have you established a procedure already for?
To remove,
Yeah.
we don't need to remove
don't
it,
need
it will
to
stay in the
remove it.
unit. The whole unit will come back to the receiving station at the end of the evening, so we don't have to remove, because the information is wireless, it'll come to our office. That card will come back in the unit to the receiving station and back to our office.
Okay. So all that card contains is the voter information. It doesn't store anything
Nothing else.
And in the event, like you stated, that someone walks away with the unit at one point at the end of the day, what happens?
We're looking at an automatic timeout that the unit will shut down and will not work.
After a certain amount of time?
We haven't said that yet, we're working on
I
it.
assume you have some kind of tracking system on each of these, or do you?
Well, we have, as far as security goes, all the data is 256-bit encrypted, which has never been hacked by anybody. So the data is secure. The other thing with this product is, because it is a purpose-built device, we haven't had any stolen. You cannot surf the internet with this. You cannot play Angry Birds on this. It really serves no purpose outside of this space for anybody. It's not like the gotta-have item for Christmas. We don't work in that space. You know, we are nuts and bolts. This is an electronic book. It's not, boy, you know, I wanted an iPad for Christmas and I didn't get one, so I'm going to take one home. You know, 18,000 of these out in the field, never had one stolen. But we don't
Never
stop.
been in Chicago.
Yeah, never say never, right? Never say never.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
But that's why we encrypt the data.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Anything else?
No.
And then, of course, we continue to search for budget ways to,
Always, Mr.
right. I know you're working hard on that, Mr. Goff.
I certainly am.
Okay. All right, thank you all for the presentation.
Thank you, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Okay, at this time, we'll move to the legal status report.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think I've already discussed a little bit about our preparations for electoral board hearings on Monday. And so we will move forward with that, and we'll be prepared to address those beginning December 16th. Also like to just take a moment to introduce Lisa Kerner. Lisa is a recent graduate of University of Illinois College of Law, and she is recently sworn in as an attorney at law in the state of Illinois. She is serving as an intern to the legal department for the next several months, and hopefully through the March primary election at least. And she's already proven to be very helpful to me, and I appreciate her presence and her assistance, and especially some gratitude to the chairman for finding her. And hopefully she's going to learn a little election law along the way that'll serve her going forward. So just want to introduce her so you know her face when you see her around here, because I'm sure she's going to be spending a lot of time around here in the next few weeks. So thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
We're lucky to have those U of I law school grads.
Yeah. Best law school in the country.
Thank you for saying that.
It goes without saying.
Yeah, thank you. Doesn't hurt repeating though.
Other than that, things are relatively quiet. If there's any new developments, we'll certainly pass those along to the commissioners.
Okay, great. Change batteries? Okay.
We have a video.
I know, that's true. I forgot we had the video for backup, but
But then you'll have to watch it through the minutes.
that's, think of the great views on there. Thank you, sir.
So we've had the full spectrum today of New technology versus.
Not to say we're timing
No,
Marianne
right.
on how long it takes to
Well,
put the batteries.
we're judicious with our assets here.
Thank you.
All
Nice,
right,
nice.
we'll move on to the financial report. We have none.
We have none, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. Sorry.
Okay, if there's nothing else to come before our regular scheduled meeting, we'll open it up for public comment. Sharon, Ms. Maroney.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Great.
I had a couple questions on the ESNS system first, and then I had another issue I wanted to bring up to the board. My first question is, how does the system address inactive?
Sharon, we got to give it to me and then I give it to them.
Got it.
Okay.
Thanks for
I
helping
don't,
with
I don't
that
want to stand on
procedure.
too much procedure, but I think that's important.
How does the system address active and inactive voters?
Okay, Judd, you want to?
Well, it will take the data from the board's voter registration system. In that format, you have the capability of loading both active and inactive voters on the system, and then put the appropriate procedures in place to deal with those. Whether it's returning to your old precinct to vote a full ballot or voting a federal only ballot, whatever your practices and procedures dictate.
And isn't each individual voter identified as an active or inactive on the system?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. There is a field dedicated to that, and it will say whether they're active or inactive. You also have the ability, the board can color code that to their desire. If they want to make inactives red or blue, what have you, they can do that so it's highlighted and it's clear to the poll worker that they are inactive.
It's basically the same way we do our applications for ballot. Our applications for ballot are coded. So,
And a voter who's inactive has to provide appropriate ID in order to vote. So it's the same, it'll be the same thing.
Well, and along that same line, Commissioner or Chairman, I'm concerned about the provisional ballot, the new laws that are coming up that we haven't been able to stop yet, where they would have to be able to vote in any precinct. So if the signatures are not loaded beyond the individual precinct, will they then, how will you identify that this person is indeed the person that's in front of you
Sure.
that wants to do a provisional? Go ahead, Kelly.
So wait, now I want to get the question. So to address the new changes in the provisional ballots, which allows you to vote a provisional ballot even in a precinct in which you may not be registered, correct? As long as those races are available in the precinct in which you would be registered, supposedly registered.
Kelly and I are both champions a bit to answer this question.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to get the question out. Okay, go
The
ahead.
goal of this program is to prevent
Yeah.
and reduce the incidence of provisional ballots. And if you think about the current system now with 600 paper ballot apps, a voter walks in and becomes insistent that this is his or her polling place and that there must have been a mistake or maybe they're missing that form. Now you have all 1.6 million records, inactive and active, and you're able to very swiftly show the computer screen, no, you vote at this location, not here. So that's the first part. The second part is that this, we hope, will provide more uniform instructions for the judges to, in turn, pass on to the voter so that they handle the provisional ballot more properly. Kelly, do you have?
But current procedures are, if a voter walks in and they claim that they are registered in that precinct, but the judges can't find them in the system, there isn't a signature on file for them anyway at that point, so they vote a provisional ballot. So you're asking how, if the signatures are only for the precinct, if they vote a provisional ballot, how can it be compared? Right now with provisional voters, you can't compare a signature because that voter, that's the reason they're voting provisional, or one of them, is that they're not listed in that precinct, so.
Right.
And the signature goes on the provisional envelope,
Application,
which is
yes.
later compared against the date basically.
and ID is required. There's all procedures for provisionals.
Okay, thank you. The next question relates to when somebody, this has come up quite a bit in our research with Defend the Vote. We get people that call us and say, I went to vote and it said that I had already voted and I had not. And so then naturally a provisional ballot should be issued, how does the system accommodate when it identifies that the person has already voted? Is it just check off provisional ballot?
Well, if the voter is insistent and disputes
Correct.
the fact that they voted, they can still vote provisionally.
And that actually is a new, well, recent addition to reasons for voting a provisional ballot. Voter claims to have voted, or is on the list for voting provisionally, or early voting or absentee, but they claim they did not, so.
Okay.
Great. Okay, thank you for, ES&S for answering those questions for us. In terms of the issues that I came to address today, may I approach?
Yes,
Marianne?
yes.
Thank you. I have a couple of, go with that. The first topic, I have two topics that I wanted to cover today, if I may. The first one is in relationship to, we've been performing a vulnerability assessment of the early voting processes and procedures for the security on the VPAT scrolls and the memory devices which are in the Edge Plus 2 machine. And we did a FOIA, which Joan so graciously administered to us. And our results are that and I have a letter here for you, and I know that you haven't seen it. Our results are that the chain of custody on the VPAT scrolls, which are the paper record of the vote, is not consistent and is really mostly random. And I present these pieces of paper to you because there are just a sampling of hundreds that I have in my possession. And basically, as you flip through them, you'll see that sometimes the judges filled them out, sometimes they did not, sometimes the carrier, what your basic procedure is that each night these scrolls are sent to the office here, and so the judges are supposed to identify where the scrolls went. The carrier, which could either be a board employee or apparently Arrow driving carrier service, picks them up, and then they're brought back here. And that whole process is supposed to be documented, and we find that it's not done. And we're asking for the board before the 2014 elections to review your procedures, to upgrade them, and to also allow us to maybe look at them and see if we can spot any discrepancies in terms of the security base for them. Just to give our advice in that form. Okay, the second issue that we've been discussing is the fact that the Defend the Vote has been researching the certification of the voting system that is used here in Chicago. And our finding has been that this system is not certified in the state of Illinois legally any longer. And furthermore, it cannot be recertified, even if the board is trying to substantiate that they believe that the system is certified through September 2014. However,
and Ms. Romer, you have the correspondence from the State Board of Election, which supports that.
I'm updating you on our response to that, which basically takes their letter and responds to it, and you have that now in your possession. I know you have.
You just recently gave it to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
So the concern that we have is to let you know that this system cannot be recertified, even at the very worst case scenario that the board is able to establish that it currently is. It will not be able to be recertified again after September because the Edge Plus 2 has not passed the 2002 voting system standards. And since Dominion Sequoia has pulled that system from further testing, it can never be tested and to pass that. So I've been investigating this, and it's not always 100% straight course, but I believe this is a HAVA Title III violation. And the Administrative Code of Illinois has procedures for that. And one of those procedures is to let people know that there is a pending HAVA 3 violation coming up. And so that's why I sent you the letter that you have today, to let you know that we believe this is a HAVA Title III violation to use this equipment any further. And actually, my further research shows that it's the entire system. It's not just the electronic machine that will not be able to be recertified. So that's one issue, and then the second is to inform you that I believe you've already had a violation of HAVA 3 and from the 2012 elections.
Okay. I suppose that you'll send, and I haven't looked through your materials, that you'll notify the agency which is responsible for certification that this what you believe to be a violation, meaning the State Board of Elections.
Yes, I'm testifying with them on the 18th.
Okay.
I've also gone to the Cook County Board, and I will be going to the Chicago Commissioner, or the Chicago Alderman and the City Council, because this is a budgetary issue, and I know that you guys struggle all the time
Yes,
to
we
get your
do.
funds, and so we might as well throw our 2 cents worth in that they need to deal with getting us updated election equipment that is actually compliant with federal and state laws.
Well, any help you can give us to allow us to upgrade our equipment, we will enthusiastically support. We differ on where we stand today, but we will at least find some common ground in looking for more money for us from that standpoint. All right.
And lastly, we mentioned in our letter to the Cook County that we are monitoring election judges for 2014, and this board is in between your certification period for the primary of 2014. But part of Defend the Vote's new roles in 2014 that we're going to be looking at taking on is to look at the different voter registration rolls and the records of the voters, and in particular how they voted in the primary before the upcoming general elections. That's because the Illinois law does allow for voters that took one ballot in the primary to not be certified to be a judge for the opposing party at that point or in the future election of that certification cycle.
So you're going to be, so I understand you, you're going to be looking at the voter records and how our voters voted in terms of what ballot they choose in the primary to make sure that that's consistency between that ballot and whether they're a judge, and for what party they elect to be a judge.
No, I beg your pardon. We're looking at the election judges and
Yeah.
how the election judges voted.
Right, that's what I
Yeah,
said.
okay, yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Uh-huh.
We want to make sure that if they're serving that party, that they are a member of the party, because the whole election judge system is based, the security of that system is based on having 2 opposing parties sitting at that table to secure the authenticity of that vote.
Well, that's certainly your right as an organization to do. We would not support that at all, but that's certainly your right to do.
Well, on the good side, we'll be driving new judges to your doorway through our recruitment process, both of the Democratic and the Republican Party, for your committeemen and your board to select and choose.
Okay, well, we're always looking for good judges, so we welcome that.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much
you,
for your
Sharon.
time.
Yeah. Anyone else that would like to address the board this morning? If not, is there a need for an executive session, Mr. Scanlon?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Then I will accept a motion to adjourn till our next regular scheduled meeting, which will be actually Monday. Well, as an electoral board. As an electoral board, we'll meet this coming Monday. That would be the 16th as an electoral board.
Motion, well, and then
I'm
on
gonna see
the,
whether, and then we'll meet on the, then when would the next board meeting be necessary? Or we're gonna just have to,
We may add on to a board meeting onto that electoral board.
okay, that's it, okay.
I think I really need that, Mr. Chairman. I got a lot of stuff going on.
All right, we will have to get notice out then. So we'll then have we'll adjourn till our next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be December 16th at 9 o'clock.
Yes.
That's what time we
the
set.
special
Well,
right?
meeting.
that's
a
like all
special-
board meetings.
That's a special board meeting, but you can't make that meeting.
Right.
Okay. Will Mr. Cowan be able to make that meeting?
You should be able to.
We'll confirm that today.
Okay.
Okay.
Moved, and I'll second.
Motion, yeah.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.